Right, so Julia, what is the one thing that truly maximises the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
So for me, it really is, there's a number of things that it really is the contributing factors to why someone, is going to get the right price or sell their home. But ultimately, it boils down to a few things for me. So when we set up our business, Greenhill Estates, we sort of really wanted to make sure that a couple of things were being done as opposed to other agents in our area who we feel are not necessarily doing that. The first one being presentation. So in our area, it is quite I would say it's quite saturated with estate agents. So we're quite a small area, about sort of 15,000 homes. And there's about 12 or 13 estate agents. So you can imagine the competition is quite rife out there. We've come onto the scene about 2.5 years ago, and we've sort of come in with, right, what can we do differently? And it's all for us about how we present the home, video content, lots of social media content, and really sort of honing in on making that property look top dollar when it first hits the portals, because technically speaking, you only have 2.7 seconds to impress somebody online. And those 2.7 seconds are crucial in, when it first hits the portal, what's going to make them click on it and what's them then going to then convert into a viewing. So obviously presentation is one. The next one is price. So, making sure that it's on a price band, making sure it's correctly priced based on the current sort of market conditions, and also making sure that we're putting it on at a price that's going to get our vendor the best possible money, but also not overpricing it. So there's a lot of factors there that we can look at.
Sorry to cut in, Julia.
That's okay.
What are the ramifications if a agent has taken shit photos and overvalued the property? What are the ramifications? What's the consequence?
So I think the consequences is that someone's probably not even going to click on it. They're going to look at a photo, outside of the photo, and go, "Oh, that looks awful," and they'll probably just skip it. I think it's as cutthroat as that, and I know that from speaking to on the road, speaking to clients. If it looks awful, why are they gonna go click on it? Simple things like, I took on a house this week, and the house next door is having quite extensive building work. It's got like loads of scaffold, it's got a skip, it's got in actual fact the scaffold's even like going into the house that I'm listing. And I've taken it off another agent because they haven't managed to sell it, and I looked at the photographs that the previous agent has taken, and they've tried to take the house at an angle as opposed to actually photographing the house, because they've tried to cut out next door. Fine, some people could say rightly so, they're being quite smart there, trying to cut out next door because next door looks like a pile of a heap of
metal and scaffold.
Yeah, but me thinking out of the box, no, I'm going to take a really lovely photo of the outside because I want to show off the whole entire house, not just half of it. And I'm going to, work my photo magic on next door. We actually use a company called My Photo Genie, and they can, take the scaffold out, they can remove the skip, they can sort of make next door look like a house as opposed to a building site. And for me, that photograph, when that goes online, versus what the previous agent has, it looks like two different houses. It genuinely does. Not only that, with this particular listing, I have also gone into the property and said, look, I'm really sorry, but you've been led down a garden path. The agent that you were marketing it with before, they've sold you a dream, maybe to just tie you into a 20-week contract, which they did. This is really the price that you're going to get for the property. So not only have I've gone in there and said, right, I'm going to do fantastic marketing, I'm going to do proper photographs, I'm gonna actually, give you the right price, and you're actually gonna sell it, because he's a really motivated seller. He's an elderly man. He needs to move quickly, but I'm doing it at a price that he's still gonna feel like he's not giving it away. But coupled with the fact that I'm going to go in there, and it hasn't actually gone online yet, but coupled with the fact that I went in there on the day that we did the photographs and moved all his clutter out the way. I rearranged his lounge, because when you walked in, it was like just furniture everywhere. I've moved tables out. I've really went that extra mile to present this property as how it should be presented, because I know that when people click on it online, they're going to look at it and go, wow, that really looks like a house I want to go and have a look at, versus what the previous agent did.
Well, so I've got a rule, which is sort of basically exactly what you've just highlighted. So my rule is you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
No, you
don't.
And
if the pictures are rubbish, the next issue is if the property's been overpriced, buyers, in my experience, are not stupid. They understand the pounds per square footage of what they're looking at better than most estate agents, because most agents, like a negotiator, may have only been into one or two properties. The buyer has investigated maybe 40 properties online, spoken to an agent or agents in the area of maybe about 11 to 15 properties, been out to view 7 of them, and the agents that have got properties that are overvalued are trying to get deals and are trying to close a buyer, and they're telling a buyer, look, if you just offer this, and the buyers are getting to understand exactly what the real money is. So what effectively what you're saying is if the pictures are not aspirational, that's not going to increase anyone's status by going, look what I've just been going to view. And then if the price is wrong, the buyers are going to go, you are having a laugh.
Yeah, exactly. And also the thing as well, just going back to what you sort of said there, is that I think now, estate agency, we live in a world where everything is available online. Buyers are not stupid. And I actually have these conversations with my vendors, because a lot of the time I've got vendors who do live in a dream world. And, look, every vendor wants to get the best money and the most money, and every vendor thinks their house is worth more than it actually is. That's just reality. I think my house is worth more than it is, I'm sure you do as well. But the reality is that we have got so much information at our fingertips now about really, or sort of call it data, as to what things are actually worth. And a lot of buyers have got access to this. Look, I've got a few little things that I can tap into that buyers don't have access to, which is quite nice. I've got a few sort of things that I work with behind the scenes to give me, even extra and sort of more data than perhaps they have access to. But, the likes of Zoopla, where you can go on and get an estimate of a home, that sort of frustrates me a little bit, because I'm like, I go and I sit in someone's lounge and they're like, yeah, but Zoopla told me my house is worth this. And you're like, but, have we actually got this and this and this to back it up? So I don't know. I agree with you there. It's
exactly. And another rule I absolutely live by, which is, and I often say it on this podcast, which is, I didn't come out with it. A guy called Tom Panos, an Australian agent, said it when I first heard it, which was about 2005. He said, property is not in isolation, it's in competition. And that is so true. And if a seller is able to think critically, because I think what happens is that there are two markets, right? There is the market of shit pictures and overvaluations, and they sit on Rightmove, on Zoopla, and a seller, when they're thinking about selling, the seller's not in the know. They're not in the know, right?
Yeah.
They are now basing their decisions on what they're seeing, marketing prices that they're seeing. And when the 3 agents go over, and you may have experienced this, I certainly have, when the 3 agents go over and 2 of them are talking absolute bollocks, and the one's telling the truth, well, the one that's telling the truth is accused of trying to sell property cheap to one of their developer mates, or accused of trying to sell it cheap to make a quick buck, right? And that is really bad and frustrating,
very.
And so what a seller thinks is like, oh my God, but I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to undersell my property. I don't want to give it away because of everything that they've seen online, which is actually a false market. But when that seller becomes a buyer, if the seller had the attitude of a buyer, and did their due diligence and worked on the basis of property's not in isolation, it's in competition. So how am I going to get all the very best buyers away from what they're currently looking at to come and see mine instead? If they worked on that basis, they would smash their property sale off the park. They'll be in complete control, because ultimately it's one thing putting a property on the market, but it's a completely different thing selling it. And I imagine that's where you come in. And that's probably why, because you have seen the punches coming, because you're experienced, and because you have a heart with massive levels of professionalism, you're able to impart that information of going, do not make these mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the seller, the 90-year-old man that you currently got, has been on with market with what, 2 or 3 other agents?
Yep. He's the third agent to take it on, and scarily enough, 125 grand less than the first agent. So
that's terrible, because that's actually cost. No matter, you're now having to untangle the mess and try to get him top dollar. So you, as a professional elite level agent, are well up against it. Now, you're probably going to succeed in actually selling his home and getting him moved, right? But by initially going on with that price because an agent has flat out lied, that's what they've done, right?
Yeah.
They've actually cost him thousands of pounds.
They have. He's actually in that situation now where, he really needs to sell, because he actually bought a boat as well. Bless him.
Oh, wow.
So he's bought a boat. And
all he wants to do is live his best life.
And all he wants to do is live his best life and, spend all his time on the boat. But, obviously keeping the house is costing him a lot of additional money.
Yeah.
And so he's now in a situation where, it is becoming a little bit of a pressure sale for him, and it's difficult because, I want to do the best for him by getting him the most money that I possibly can.
Why do you want to do the best for him? Why?
Because he's been so wrongly treated. he's been, like I said, he's been led down the garden path of believing that he can go and get 700 grand for his house.
But going deeper though, Julia, right? Why would you put yourself in a position from a truth position? Because it's very hard to tell the truth and get away with it in this game. Yeah. And that effectively can cost you instructions, because you're now the third agent. So the guy's coming to you, actually, I'm really sorry, Julia, I should have given you the property in the first place. I've made a mistake. I should have listened. I didn't, right? But that puts you in a position, because that means that you are not maybe winning all the instructions that you should. But why would you put yourself in that position?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I feel like being in that position where I've got it on now at the right price, I'm doing the right presentation, I'm doing him the right service, I know that, effectively with my formula, and coupled with the fact that, the way I work is very professional, and, no, I don't sugarcoat things. I'm actually South African, so I'm
definitely don't sugarcoat things.
Very to the point. I've been called brash before. So I really do, I tell people how it is, and sometimes, it does lose me instructions. But why would I want to go and spend loads of money on my marketing, my really amazing marketing, put a house on the market just to show the portals that I'm listing houses, to not sell it? Why am I going to do that? It's a waste of everybody's time. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my seller's time. And it's just going to then sit on the market and sort of start to get stale. He's then going to have to reduce the price, and then, potentially it's just going to sit there for a long time and not move. Whereas actually, if we go in, give the right advice, do the right marketing, right price, sell. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say there's a winning formula every time. We've got tough market conditions out there as well at the moment, which, don't sort of always help. But, I would class his particular property as quite a bread and butter type of house that should have sold a year ago,
Wow.
if he'd been given the right advice. So, he's now the second agent, he was tied in for 20 weeks. The first agent, he was tied in for 15 weeks. So he's now 35 weeks down the line and no further forward.
Yeah. So effectively what you're saying, the way you do agency is not KPI driven in the sense that you're being smashed over the head and you must meet these KPIs. And if you don't, there's the door.
Yeah.
You are
in there, done that.
Yeah. And you guys, you're leading with compassion and empathy with massive levels of professionalism is effectively what you're saying. And so it means that you are putting your seller in full control, because why would you want to waste your time on a sale that's never going to sell? But when you've got someone who is a seller who is motivated to sell and all they want is just the right advice, and the agent doesn't recognize that and feeds them shite, and just to make sure that they win the instruction, that's terrible. That's absolutely horrific. So I love
it happens so much in our area. It's very kind of I'd call it a little bit cutthroat. There's agents in our town that will literally just go and put something on the market just so that they can show their competitor down the road that they got a listing this week and that competitor didn't. And they don't care if it's on the market for 100 grand too much. It's all a little bit like, oh, I got an instruction and you didn't. Exactly. Who wants instructions? We obviously, yes, of course we want houses on the market, but we want those houses to sell, and we want those houses, those buyers to become our future sellers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another big thing. If you, I always ask a lot of my clients to look at my Google reviews, because a lot of my Google reviews are actually from my buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that those buyers are my future sellers. And, there's a hell of a lot I've been doing this job a long time, and there's a hell of a lot of people out there that tell me, I put in an offer on a place and I never heard from the agent ever again. I know we're going off on a tangent now, talking about something completely different, but I just had to throw that into the equation. And, for me, my buyers, like I said, are my future sellers, and my sellers are the ones that are paying my fee. So I'm going to treat them equally. And I know that, yes, ultimately, a lot of corporate companies will say, well, you work for the seller and you need to, don't forget that the seller is the one that's paying your fee. Yeah. But I also need to give my buyers that service so that they feel like what they're buying, is truly their dream.
So it's a win. So basically you're effectively positioning your sellers in a way in which everybody's winning. And that doesn't mean that the buyer gets a bargain.
No.
But what the buyer does feel like, though, is actually you've treated them with a massive duty of care. Correct. And everybody is on the same page, which is then a lot easier to actually get a deal to complete when things, because we both know, your marketing strategy, the way in which you take pictures, the level of detail you go into in terms of service before that property comes to market, the way in which you handle offers, and actually, it's not always the highest offer that wins. It's the best buyer in the best position that often wins, right? But then we both know that the fun actually begins at the moment an offer's actually been agreed, and now we're going through the conveyancing. That's where the actual real hard work and tenacity comes in. But if you, as an agent, have set up, not you, other agents, have set up and positioned the property incorrectly in the beginning, it stands the biggest chance of falling out of bed, because people are already fucked off with the situation. And then when something small comes up during the conveyancing, or when it gets surveyed, etc., that's it. What have you got? You've no goodwill. There's no one loves each other, and it's all very transactional based. And people go, well, now out of principle, I'm not buying this house because you lied for me, agent, from the very beginning. And now I just found this on the survey, and now it's been downvalued, and now that conveyancing, there's something wrong on the title, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. It just does really just boil down to, just doing people the right service and giving them the right information. I mean, we actually, we had this lady who viewed a house through us, and she didn't actually, she did a couple of viewings with us. She didn't actually end up buying for us. She ended up buying for another agent. And when she came to sell her property, she gave it to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just to cut in there very quickly, right? Because you've just said something amazing, right? You've absolutely said something amazing. a little bit of a plug, right? I just have to get it in there because of what you just said.
Yep.
I always say, right, when I was working with buyers, if a buyer didn't buy the first property I showed them, they would absolutely buy the second. And if they didn't buy the second, right, that's because I didn't have it, but they would 100% sell through me. And if so, it's not all about price, right? It's not all about price. It's about how good the agent is. And what you've just said then is highlighted how good you really are, because you understand your buyers to within an inch of their lives, meaning that you are not wasting their time and you are a trusted authority in your market, which is why you're successful. But then what comes with your level of success is your preparedness to walk away from instructions if it's not set up correctly. But also you ain't going to let yourself down by saying things that sound nice in order to win instructions.
No, of course not. Because like I said to you, there is just, there is nothing to gain by doing that. I think, it can also very quickly give you a reputation of, oh, that's the agent that overvalues everything and doesn't sell anything, and, reputation is a big thing. And a lot of our business comes from referral. A lot of our business comes from recommendation. My friend used you, or my friend, I like, again, just going back to, we don't do that. We do a little bit of lettings as well. Like we're more of a sales focus, but I had a lady that viewed a property through me about a year and a half ago, and she just dropped me a text the other day and she's like, oh, I've got property to let, can you come round and value it? Just little things like that, where I've obviously left just a lovely lasting impression with that woman, that she's remembered me a year and a half later, and it does give me quite a nice, even just talking about it now and just thinking back to individual scenarios, it gives me that sort of, warm and fuzzy feeling to feel that actually,
what you're doing is correct.
I'm not a bullshit estate agent, and I'm not that one that, leads people down a garden path of no return. And I've been doing this job 21 years now, and I'd like to think that I'm not one of those agents that's got that bad reputation of it's quite funny when people go, oh, what do you do? I'm an estate agent. They're like, oh, shame.
Yeah, but you know the difference between an agent saying things that sound nice to win instructions and you is that actually you are not an estate agent. You're managing risk. So you're a risk manager, you're in risk management, you're in project management, you're in event management, and you're also a therapist, right?
I was about to say I'm a counsellor.
Yeah, right. And that is it. So what you basically, you don't do transactional sales. You do empathetic sales that actually have huge depth and breadth to them in terms of knowledge and know-how.
Yeah. A lot of my clients are my friends, so
absolutely. Love what you do, love what you're currently doing, love what you stand for. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I am really happy that we've actually been introduced to each other, and to your success. Thank you very much, Julia, for coming on the podcast.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time, and speak soon.